All right. We are getting some crazy news out of the Fifth Circuit Court trying to overrule the Supreme Court. We've got these rabid, crazy animals going after Donald Trump. And sadly, it looks like they're starting to get traction. I want to go over the biggest news stories. And today I have with me Sean Spicer from The Sean Spicer Show. Sean, thank you so much for joining me today.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
So the first story that I want to jump in on has me concerned. Letitia James, the Attorney General out of New York, her tactic against Donald Trump seems to be getting traction. It seems to be working. I'm hoping it's just temporary, but these are dirty tricks. They changed the laws twice in New York in order to get Trump. Now they're saying you owe us $350 million plus $100 million in interest. They're harassing the bond companies that would normally put up the money, and he can't even get an appeal without possibly liquidating $1 billion in real estate. What are your thoughts on Letitia James? What are your thoughts on how Trump is handling this? What are your thoughts on New York's dirty tricks to get Donald Trump?
It's interesting. I had Alan Dershowitz on my show, and I asked him the same. I'm as appalled as you are. I think. I mean, I just because as a layperson, I don't. My entire legal understanding is based on watching a ton of Law and Order, and I'm like, how does this happen? So let's just back up for a second for everyone who may be wondering, like. Trump made deals with lenders. He said, I want to buy this property. I want to finance this. So he'd go to a bank and they'd say, okay, what do you got? And he'd say, I got this building. Well, how much is it worth? It's worth $100 million. And the bank would do their due diligence and agree. Well, the state of New York, years later, came in and said, well, you overvalued that, or, and so we, the state, are going to sue you, Trump. Now, just keep in mind that the what I'm laying out here, the bank who lent Trump the money is completely fine. They're happy. They got their money back. They loaned him based on the terms. They did their due diligence. They said, you say that building's worth 100? We'd say it's worth 80, whatever. I mean, who doesn't do that in the sense of, how much is my house worth? Well, I think it's worth this. The bank comes in, if you've ever refinanced or bought a new property, and they say, this is what we think it's worth. Okay. That's fine. The judge told him that Mar-a-Lago was worth $18 million. Now, if you've ever been down there, or if you have access to the internet and you look and you say Mar-a-Lago exists between the Intercoastal Waterway and the Atlantic Ocean, entirely across, there's actually a tunnel that goes under. That's where the pool side is over there. And then there's the clubhouse. And $18 million wouldn't buy you a cabana in Palm Beach where that's located. They themselves lied about valuation, the court. So I look at this and say, this is insane that you're going after what is literally a victimless crime. You're saying the state of New York is coming in and saying, no. We think that you should be upset. You should be outraged, bank. You got paid back on terms that you liked, but gosh darn, we think you should be upset. So she's going after them. They, as you said, $350 million plus $100 million in interest. Plus every day that he appeals is $100,000. I can't wrap my head around these numbers. Like, I'm like, can you imagine $100,000 a day? I'd be like, here you go. This is all I got. So now what happens? Well, he's appealing because he doesn't think that that's okay for a million reasons, right? The court says, great. If you appeal, you have to put up a bond for the amount that we find you, $400.5 billion is what it comes down to. And so as anyone that's watching this thinks to themselves, how liquid are you? So you may own a house, you may own stocks, whatever. How much cash do you have? And most people don't keep a ton of cash because that's probably not the smartest investment. You invest it in a bond or a CD or a stock or a house or whatever. So Trump's not liquid. He doesn't have $500 million under his mattress. So they're like, okay, we'll go out and get a bond or whatever. If he doesn't do this, Letitia James, the Attorney General that you just mentioned, is going to go out and seize properties. So I asked Dershowitz this question on the show. What happens then? Well, let's say they pick his plane, Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, one of the country clubs. It immediately would become devalued. So let's say that $100 million building, they go in and they take it over. Now it's because of how it was done, it's not worth as much. If he wins his appeal, what does he get back? Well, let's say they took $100 million and they sold it for 60. He gets 60 back. He loses even if he wins. This, Stephen, is, I tell people all the time, 2016, it was Russia. We're going to say that he's a tool of the Russian, whatever, Russia hoax. Then it became Hunter Biden laptop. You can't use it. It's suppressed. This time they left nothing to they left no stone unturned. It was, we're going to attack him criminally. We're going to try to get him off the ballot, and then we're going to bleed him out financially. We are going to make sure this works. And I'll tell you, I don't know that they're going to get every asset or whatever, but I think Letitia James wants to make a name for herself. She wants to be the person that got Trump financially. And she's going to go after, my guess is, an asset that makes it hurt. So like literally she could say, I'm going to take your plane because I don't want you to be, and this is not like everybody who's out there. Whenever I talk to someone, they say, I don't like Trump. He's getting what he deserves. I go, that's not how this works. You don't get to just go after somebody because you don't like them. Because if it's not you, then who else? I mean, if it's not him, then who else? So everyone out there that's listening that says, well, I don't like Trump or he deserves it or whatever else, just realize that if they can do this to a billionaire, they can do it to you, and they can do it a lot easier and a lot less painful, where they're going to go, okay, we got you on this. Here's what we're going to plead to. Or, I mean, I've watched people have this during Mueller and all these other things. These lawyers are not cheap. $1,000, an hour, plus their paralegal, plus whatever. I mean, so when they come after you, they squeeze you and they go, this is going to cost you 50 grand. You want to pay that, or you can plead to this now. And this is what they're doing to Trump on a much larger scale. And I hear so many times that, he's getting what he deserves. And I'm like, really? You want justice to be administered like this? Okay, wait till it's your turn.
Yeah, I think it's the largest individual fine levied against a human. Obviously, Big Pharma has had some massive fines, but we're supposed to trust them. But you bring up a really good point, Sean, that I didn't think about. What if they could very easily go after his airplane. So, okay, we'll lock him up in court. We'll also make it extremely difficult and expensive to campaign,
Yep.
to move around the country. What's he going to do? Fly Delta? Like he's a busy guy.
Right.
He's got to move from place to place. The other area where they could then maybe say, okay, wait a minute. We're bound by the geography of New York, so we're only going to be able to go after New York property. They're going to go after Trump Tower. It's one of the most prized pieces of real estate in all of New York City. I mean, they're constantly vandalizing it and standing out front of it protesting. Why not just take it over? It has some of the most lucrative lease agreements ever negotiated in world history. And so I could definitely see them doing that. I want to switch gears here. Yesterday, I was cheering and excited. The Supreme Court said, of course, Greg Abbott and the state of Texas and Border Patrol, they have the right to protect Texas from invasion of illegal immigrants. Well, now this morning it broke, a Fifth Circuit court has come out and said, no, we're going to rule against the Supreme Court upholding this, and you have to allow Texas to be invaded. You have to bow down and do whatever Biden wants, stand down, don't do anything. What are your thoughts on this reversal? And does this, in fact, encourage the cartels and the illegal immigrants from all over the world to now rush the border over the next 6 months?
Yeah, we'll start with that last part first. The answer is yes. Like you, I went to bed last night thinking, finally, like, wow, this is great. And I was so excited to get up this morning and talk about this. Like, wow, the good guys win, common sense prevails. And then I was like, wait, what is the Fifth Circuit doing? And I had to, I'm not a lawyer. I had to ask, I was like, I don't get it. The Supreme Court spoke, and well, no, it actually sent it back. And how quick did they get involved to do this? But before we go off and blame the courts, which I've got plenty to say on that, remember that this all stems from the Biden administration suing the state of Texas. and saying that they didn't have the right to protect themselves from an invasion, which is actually delineated in the Constitution as the ability for that a state has to do. Our federal government, think about this for a second. Our federal government said, we will not do our job, and then we will sue you so that you can't do your job. There are people illegally entering this country. Okay. Now, people have to understand something real quick. There are two ways that you can enter the country, even under this current scheme. In Texas alone, there are 28 points of entry, 28 places where you can walk up. There's an entry point, there's a guard or whatever, and a gate, and you walk up and you say, I'd like to apply for asylum, and they have to let you in. Most of these people aren't doing that. They're literally cutting through wire and sneaking in. Under no circumstances is that illegal. There is nothing that allows you to do that. Nothing. That is truly trespassing. That is breaking the law. And yet we have Border Patrol that stands there and says, come on through, because they claim they have to. They are allowing the wire to remain broken and not, tie it up and whatever. Because think about that, 28 points of entry along the Texas border alone. And we're not talking about the people who go to those and then come in. And this administration will do nothing to stop that. So the left gets really upset when you say this. But I've had this argument and this discussion with countless people. And I'll say to them, if you can legally enter through points of entry, and yet the administration won't encourage that, it still stops you. It allows you to walk through any point that you want, come in, be processed, given a gift card and a phone and a hotel room. How, and this gets back to the last part of your question, how are you not, you have to conclude that they want this. They want people to come up. I have a friend of mine who is a contractor for the State Department. And several months ago, he said to me, I got to tell you a funny story. Now, again, he's in business, so he's like, I'll tell you it, but please don't. When under the Bush administration, their job was to put up billboards in countries to our south in South America. And under the Trump administration, these billboards said, the border is closed, please do not come. Under the Biden administration, they had the billboards changed to say, here's how you can get help. They literally are encouraging it and then explaining to them how to do it. And my buddy said to me, I thought you'd want to know this. I don't, obviously we make money off doing this. This is our job. We put up on the billboard whatever we're told to, but I thought you'd get a kick out of that. This administration understands that the more people come in, that those are voters. And there's no question about it. They cut an ad, the Biden-Harris campaign, that says we want a pathway of citizenship for the Dreamers. Okay, well, more people come in. How do you determine if a Dreamer's a Dreamer versus a guy who came in through a cut thing? You can't. They're destroying their passports, their documents. We don't know who's who. Plus, this is a very interesting thing that people, the media and the left don't want to talk about. In this so-called border bill that they passed, they allowed not judges, but asylum officers to decide on the spot whether somebody could get asylum. Okay, their view is that we would expedite all of this and blah, 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 and process more people in. If more people are not judges now who would actually look at the case, and of which most people who actually go through the asylum process are denied because they really don't have an asylum case, they just want to come. If you now just leave it up to a bunch of bureaucrats who are sympathetic to them, under the border bill, this would be what would happen. Once you are granted asylum, you are a citizen within 5 years. Full stop. That's how it works. So what the Biden administration is really trying to do is find a way to grant more people asylum. And by doing that, there's a 5-year countdown between the second you're granted asylum and becoming a citizen. Well, when you become a citizen, you can vote. There is no reason. I mean, this is it. It's happening in plain sight. And anybody who doubts that, when I ask them, tell me if you really cared about the security of this country, the fentanyl, the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking, the terrorism, the other crime that's coming over the border, it's not hard. Just by executive order, you could do remain in Mexico. You could do third country processing and applications. All of the things that Trump did that Biden so proudly undid on day one, 94 executive actions, he said he was proud to undo. He was proud of that. They bragged about it. And now they claim, well, I can't do anything. That's ridiculous. They want this. And as soon as our side wakes up and recognizes that this is actually their goal, then we're going to be able to fight a lot more effectively. Too often we're like, well, they're just incompetent. They're not incompetent. This is the plan.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When you were talking about, not doing those billboards or announcing the border is closed, do not come. They don't just say that. It's like, we'll help you, we'll get you the financial help. Here's a hotline. Here's a new app on how to get your name in, like hold your name in line so that when you illegally cross in, we've already got your name. This reminds me of like, let's say that there was a pimp with a bunch of ladies of the night. Sorry.
And be careful when I take a sip.
I promise this will make sense, right? So you got a pimp with a bunch of ladies of the night, and they get arrested, and instead of saying, hey, this is illegal, this puts women in danger, their lives are at danger, it would be like them saying, Mr. Pimp, you're not filling out your tax forms correctly.
Right.
So instead of like shutting it down as illegal, it's like, hey, here's how to do this better so that you can keep doing this. Like that's where my brain went.
No,
like,
it's like having a restaurant that says it's closed, but then having the maitre d' walk out and hand you the menu and say, what do you want to order? And you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, so I guess you're open.
Here's the deal that we need to be aware of. Language matters. Words matter. And so what has happened? Under U.S. code right now, if you enter this country illegally, any which way, you are defined by the law, by U.S. code, as an illegal alien. That's what's in the law. Okay? You want to change it, change the law. Right now, you're demonized. If you use the word, you saw Biden the other day when he said Lincoln Riley, her name's Laken Riley, when he said at the State of the Union that she was killed by an illegal, the left went nuts. Well, that's what the law actually says. The gentleman who did that horrible, horrible act was in this country illegally, and he is an illegal by U.S. law. They want to shift it to now calling them a newcomer, as if we're going to a mixer at the condo association and there's going to be pigs in a blanket served. Those are newcomers. Welcome, 5th floor tonight, 7 o'clock. We're having a charcuterie board and we're going to welcome the newcomers. That's a newcomer. A newcomer is not someone who illegally enters our country and then doesn't register. I mean, but they want to change the language. They want to destigmatize what is happening so that they're not seen as somebody who broke the law, who's here illegally. No. You're a newcomer. Welcome. Have the salami with a little cheese over on the side. And by the way, there's a hummus platter over there too.
Yeah. Newcomer. You know what? He's just new to killing people. Well, give him a break. He's new to it.
I mean, between this and the squatting that's going around, I was watching the news the last few days, and you see these instances over and over again. And there's people who will enter a house that's not theirs. And in one case in New York, it was all over the news in the last couple of days, where this woman who owned the house comes in with the deed and the title, and she got arrested for trying to kick a squatter out because he claimed that he had the right to be there. And under New York law, a squatter is treated as a tenant, as a renter. This is the difference. The idea that we're treating people who break, that used to be called breaking and entering, trespassing. And now it's called, again, well, they're a newcomer to your house.
Yeah. Doesn't the Bible say something about beware of calling good evil and evil good, something like that? It feels like we're starting to live in those days. This morning, President Trump said that he will win the presidency because of the safety he will bring to the country and to the world. He said women and minorities are flocking to his campaign because people know in their hearts he will keep them safe. What are your thoughts on President Trump's words?
So I did my first campaign in 1994. I know I don't look it. It's because I use a moisturizing mask every night. And I've done campaigns pretty much every cycle since, to some degree or another. I maintain that elections come down to two fundamental things: economic security and personal security. What do I mean by that? Economic security, you hear the government and politicians all the time tell you, well, you must be doing well. The CPI is this, the stock market is this. Economic security, as I define it, is how you feel. Are you saving money? Do you feel confident in your job and your income and whatever else? But it's a gut, it's a visceral feeling. Someone can't tell you the economy's good. You either feel it or you don't. And with respect to personal safety, do you feel safe? Do you feel you can walk down the street or not? Do you feel that the country is safe? So if you remember 2004, George Bush prosecuted the case against John Kerry by saying, if you elect John Kerry, you'll be less safe. Terrorists will invade us. All these bad things will happen. He played upon people's personal safety fears. And Trump is doing it on a very similar way. I've lived in the Northern Virginia area for going on 30 years. And when I go into the District of Columbia, as infrequent as I try to now, there is a degree of not feeling safe that I've never felt in 3 decades. I will get into my car quickly. I will try to get out, make sure I park in a light. I mean, I've never, ever felt that way. Save a couple times that I've gone in neighborhoods or places, whatever, in DC. My personal safety is, I don't believe I don't believe it's being addressed, if you will, in the District of Columbia. And I think for a lot of people, whether it's New York City, San Francisco, LA, a lot of places, they share that. And President Trump is rightly capitalizing on that and saying, I'm a law and order guy. I'm not going to sit by while we talk about defunding the police and decriminalizing things. Look at the videos on social media where people run into a CVS or a Target or whatever, gather everything and just walk out, and no one will do anything. The security guard stands there and watches it all happen. That's because of the policies of the left. That's because the left has said, hey, we're not going to empower police officers. We're going to defund them. We're going to demoralize what it means to be a police officer. And then we're not going to allow them to arrest people. And if they are arrested, they certainly won't do any time. When I grew up, there's this whole saying, crime doesn't pay. The idea, you do something bad, you'll be arrested, you'll go to jail, you'll be punished, there'll be a stigma with this. Now it's like, cool, hey, go do something. It doesn't matter. You won't go to jail. And if you do, you'll get let out. You'll probably sue somebody for something and then get, some kind of judgment because they mistreated you as a criminal. But we have changed in society how we handle criminals and how we stigmatize crime. And what Trump is doing is reasserting that and saying, I want you and your families to be able to walk down the street, walk into your own neighborhood, walk into a city and not feel like you're going to get carjacked or held up. And I'm glad he's doing it, because I think for a lot of people, you think about, by the way, just shifting it strategically, you think about like the battleground states, right? So Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and the big cities there, Atlanta, obviously, in Georgia, Lansing, and Detroit and Michigan, et cetera, right? Pittsburgh and Philly in Pennsylvania. And all of these key suburb voters, it's something that's clearly top of mind for a lot of them.
Yeah, no, I like immigration shot really high over the last 30 days, where as I've covered for the last few years, it's always been like in the top 10, but it's never been number one.
Did you see the video? Did you see that video? It kind of, viral's an overused word, but got a lot of attention with Jen Psaki and Joy Reid the day after the State of the Union, where they laughed at Virginia voters saying that it was a top issue after the Super Tuesday.
Yes.
Well, I mean, and the reality is that for those of us in Virginia, we see it every day.
Yeah. No, I mean, like the criminals, I'm on the West Coast, so I see West Coast news more than East Coast news. But like they talk about like, well, the criminals aren't that bad. They stole under $1,000. That's the limit. It's like, no, there is no limit. Stealing is wrong. I don't care if you're religious or not. As a society, we've decided you can't steal from a business, or the business has to raise prices on everyone who doesn't steal.
Well, and that's right. And we see more and more. Right. And we see more and more in Virginia that stores are closing. You think about how many people's jobs that impacts, the ability for, in the case of these grocery stores or convenience stores, that impacts the ability of families and businesses in that neighborhood to get goods and services. So, I just get a kick out of the fact that the left doesn't seem, I mean, they don't seem to think it matters. We need to worry more about the criminal, right? So think about all of the Pelosi and all these folks on the left that worried about whether or not we're using the right pronouns and names for the guy who murdered Laken Riley in Georgia. They didn't express concern for her. She never said her name. She never expressed concern for her family or what they went through. She was worried whether or not Biden used the right name. He called the criminal, the murderer, an illegal. How dare he? I mean, that's where their default is. It's with the criminal.
Yeah, it's like, okay, illegal, undocumented. He still killed somebody. So let's just call a spade, but they don't want to. They want to defend somebody unless it really helps them, like George Floyd or something like that, that they can then rally the base. But, you know, any life lost is a shame. Okay, I know we're pressing up against time. Final question. Just this morning, Judge Scott McAfee down in the Fani Willis versus Trump disaster, he said, okay, listen, I let her off the hook. I let Nate Wade off the hook. Yes, they lied under oath. They perjured. They broke all of these things. They did, you know, they crossed lines as managers and co-defendants and employee manager relationship, all of that. They misspent taxpayer money. Money paid under the table, luxury vacations, on and on and on, right? So he said today that he was going to grant permission that they could file for an appeal to have her removed before the trial begins. I see this as a big win. Do you think she will actually be removed? Because I think he knows that he needs to remove her, but I don't think he had the courage to do it himself. He wants somebody else to do it for him.
I think that's right. That what this all goes back to is the cases that we're talking about. There are so many things that should be obvious, whether you've been to law school or not, saying this is inappropriate. How do you name your boyfriend as one of the fellow prosecutors who's not a criminal attorney, who doesn't have, I mean, none of this makes sense, right? But yet they don't do it. How do you take Letitia James and do what she did? How do you take Alvin Bragg, the New York DA, and take something that is past the statute of limitations, is normally a bookkeeping misdemeanor, and create a newfound felony? Because it's Trump. And so when you ask a question like that, my default goes to common sense. Of course, they'll have to remove her. That would make sense. But then you look at what McAfee did, which is nothing. This was a slam dunk case, but you put it correctly. He didn't have the courage to do it. Now, do I think that there's going to be more fallout? I hope so, and I believe so. But the thing that I have found is, and you use the right word, it's courage. Whether or not you're a judge or a CEO, we keep seeing a lack of courage from people in leadership and elected office to do the right thing, because it's more popular, especially among the left, to go after Trump or to do things, to weaponize things that they wouldn't have ever thought of in the past. I can't, if you closed your eyes and said, I'm going to tell you about a situation where a prosecutor starts dating another prosecutor or hires her boyfriend to do something, and then he pays for a bunch of stuff, you would go, there's no way there's no way that could possibly happen. And if it did, this is the consequences that would ensue. But because it's Trump, it's allowed to occur. And that's, as I said at the beginning, that's something that should concern everyone. So will she get removed? I don't know. But should she be removed? Absolutely. It is absolutely insane what's happening in this case. Now, I feel good that 6 of the charges already got thrown out. They are chipping away at this. But make no mistake about this. I said this at the outset, and I'll just repeat this again. The goal here is just to wear him out. Take him off the ballot, make him fight. Go after him criminally, make him fight. Bleed him financially, make him fight. The idea is a multi-pronged approach to say, we didn't get you with Russia. We suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop. This time, we're going to come at you with everything on multiple angles to figure out how we can slow this down and stop it. That's what's happening right now. And in any objective scenario, I mean, think about, I know this is off topic, but it's at the top of my brain. we played this on my show the other day, and I'm sure everyone's seen it online, but like they go nuts because Trump uses the word bloodbath with respect to the economic relationship with China and the auto industry. And the media goes nuts. Joe Scarborough and all these people freak out. We know what he meant. On my show, I played this supercut that somebody else had put together, and we played of just all the same people using the same word. Jake Tapper, Don Lemon, Joe Scarborough calling this or that a bloodbath, talking about corpses and bodies and, just colloquial stuff that we all say. But somehow when they say it, it's totally acceptable and cool. If Donald Trump uses the same exact words, well, that's a travesty. And I think that the big takeaway that I come away with all of this is we need to understand what's at stake as we get further and further closer to November. Everything is at stake. Our way of life, our legal system, all of these things, our border, our voting, all of it's at stake. And if we don't stand up and engage in the process and are willing to show courage in a way that wasn't shown by this judge, then we are part of the problem. We all need to be part of the solution and fight and be active in what's happening.
Yes, agreed. Amen. I hope it will all resolve itself the way that it's supposed to. But he is up against so many battles. It's like David versus 1,000 Goliaths. It's a lot. So we'll just continue to, pray that things go well for the country, and now for this nominee. Sean, if people want to follow you online, what's the best place? Should I push them to the Sean Spicer Show?
Please
What do you want
yeah.
me to do?
Please, Sean Spicer Show on YouTube and Rumble. Apple and Spotify are great. I tell people all the time, you can go to all of them, please, because it helps grow the show. It's also a safety measure in case big tech starts censoring the stuff that we have. We had them try to do this the other night when we had a discussion, merely a discussion on abortion. YouTube shadow banned the show. And so if you can, please go to YouTube, sign up for the Sean Spicer Show, hit the notification button, but go to Rumble and Apple as well, and make sure that you do that. You don't have to listen every night. You listen to Stephen Gardner, but you don't have to listen to me every night. Just subscribe, help us grow, help us show sponsors that we're doing that. And then obviously, if you just want any other information, SeanSpicer.com is where I'm at.
Okay, I will put that down below. Folks, if you like getting access to the biggest names in America to understand what's going on in the news, this political cycle, then make sure to like the show and hit that subscribe button. And Sean, I will leave a link to your show down below. Thank you for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Always a pleasure, Stephen.